I was nervous because I'm like, what am I doing? Like it's a lot to take your clothes off, right? And for money. That's when alcohol entered my life again. I had to lose all of that for me to understand why God created me to be the person I am today. It had to happen. DHS came to my house and took my daughter because we were into drugs that bad.
You didn't really understand what battle you were even fighting.
Exactly. And all you got to do is fall to the feet of Jesus, and he's got you no matter what.
You made a good choice there. I don't know many women in your situation who would have said, I'm going to bring a child into this world when I can't even take care of myself.
Right.
And you chose life.
So at about 12, 13 years old is when I started participating in some activity that I'm not proud of. It's when I started sneaking out of the house. You know, I was a good student. I was a good sports player. I played soccer my whole life. I played softball my whole life. And I started to seek out friends and activities that made, you know, what I thought would make me feel better about what was going on at home. And so I started sneaking out of the house. Took my first sip of alcohol when I was 13 years old. And I remember like it was yesterday. And I remember the escape I felt when I drank alcohol. You know, it was like I didn't have to worry about any of the problems that were going on at home.
So alcohol was a way for you to kind of diffuse the pain of your parents' divorce and your alcoholic father.
Yeah.
Okay,
Absolutely.
I understand that.
My mom had gotten remarried. It wasn't my favorite relationship. You know, and I love my mom dearly, you know, and I can understand today everything that she had gone through. But there was a period of my life where I was very bitter and hateful towards my mom. You know, I blamed her for a lot of the stuff that happened. And as the woman I am today, I got to learn like my mom was going through some stuff. You know, she was trying to survive, right? Domestic violence, alcoholism, just the chaos. And so after 13 to 14, 15 years old, I was running away from home. I don't know how I maintained good grades, but I did.
How many siblings did you have growing up?
So I have one sister that is my biological sister. She's 2.5 years younger than I am.
Okay.
And then I have another sister, but she was born out of my mom's second marriage, and I didn't grow up with her. So
Okay.
I don't know. I know her, obviously, but
Sure.
we weren't that close. I was already out of the house when she was being raised.
Gotcha.
So,
okay.
So lots of running away from home. I started having run-ins with the law when I was 13 years old, 7th and 8th grade. And my mom had finally got to a point, and my dad, where neither one of them really knew how to deal with the situation, I feel like, or they were already stressed out with their own stuff that was going on. I can't remember how the decision was made, but ultimately there was a decision made where I went and stayed with my aunt and uncle for a little while. And when I went and stayed with my aunt and uncle for a little while, the thought process was like, okay, you know, maybe some of these things are going to change. Maybe her behavior is going to change, and that was not the case. I ended up sneaking out of their house, and one night I had snuck out of their house, and I think it was the police. Yeah, it was the police. The police came in. They had caught us at a party, and the police had knocked on my aunt and uncle's door. And that was when my aunt and uncle were like, you're not staying here. Right. And I was about 15 years old at that time. And when all was said and done, my mom ended up leaving Arizona and moved out to Colorado. So that's kind of the chain of events that got me out to Colorado in 2007. Okay. So I moved in with my dad after that. It was like my mom had finally like stopped fighting. She was like, I'm not, you know, you want to go live with your dad, go live with your dad. Right. So I ended up
Was all this in Arizona?
This was all in Arizona.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So I was born in Arizona. My dad was born in Arizona. My parents both went to ASU.
Gotcha.
And so after the military, that's why the decision to go back to Arizona was there. Moved in with my father. I think I was with my father for like 3 to 6 months, and I ended up pregnant because my dad allowed me, you know, to do the things that I wanted to do.
So you're 15 and you got pregnant?
I was 16. It was 2 weeks after my 16th birthday I got pregnant. Yeah. Still going to school, you know, high school.
Okay, well, let me ask you something. Where was God in your life during this whole season? Like, did you grow up in a
church? I did. I grew up when I was with my dad. We went to Catholic church. when I was with my mom, we went to a Christian church.
So you knew who Jesus was.
I
What was your relationship like with him? Like, did you have one, or was it just going to Sunday, check the box?
Going to Sunday, check the box. And
Okay.
the way I like to describe it is the God I knew was a punishing God. Like today, the God I know is a loving, forgiving.
Yeah.
It's a relationship that I have today, right? Somebody I can depend on. But the God I grew up with was very punishing, right? When I was 16 and pregnant, I had been going to when I lived with my dad, I had to go to church on Sundays, to the Catholic church. And when I got pregnant, my family asked me to stop going to church.
Why?
Because they were ashamed that I was 16 and pregnant and not married. So that really turned things for me. Like that was a turning point for me. And I'm like, really? You know? So the God that I have today is not at all
No.
the idea of God that I grew up with.
Did you ever think to have an abortion or give it up for adoption?
Adoption. Abortion was not in the cards. That was not a thing,
good.
especially with my parents and their beliefs,
Yeah.
their Christian beliefs. But adoption was a conversation at one point. I could not do that. I couldn't fathom myself doing something like that. My stepmom and my stepmom at the time, she was very understanding. She was like, I will help you make whatever decision you want to, but my dad and my mom, absolutely not. Like,
Oh.
so we had talked about adoption. But then after kind of a couple months gone by, I decided, no, I can't do adoption. And obviously I'm not going to do an abortion. And so I told my dad. At the time, my mom had moved to Colorado, and she was really, I feel like my mom kind of had like a nervous breakdown because of everything that had unfolded. And so she took my little sister, came up to Colorado. She had just had my other little sister. So my sister and my daughter are 2 years apart from each other.
Okay. Wow. That's a lot.
Yeah.
Okay.
So my mom moved to Colorado, and my dad said, okay, well, if you're going to have a baby, you have to get married, right? Because that's what the Catholic Church wants you to do. That was his reasoning behind that. So by July of 2001, I was in a car on the way to Laughlin, Nevada, and got married for the first time at 16 years old.
Okay. So you're driving through Laughlin, Nevada, which I've been there. That's crazy. And you got married.
Yeah. My family, my dad, my mom, I was so scared to walk in there because I thought like a big drag out fight was going to happen because they had such a hard time getting along with each other. And we got through it. It was very strange. It was very awkward. It was an interesting event in my life. And so the idea though is you're not going to have a baby out of wedlock, right? And
Did you love the man that you were with?
Absolutely not. No.
Oh.
No.
So you guys weren't like in a dating relationship?
We were in a dating relationship, but like as I look back on it today, like that wasn't the man that I was supposed to spend the rest of my life with.
Okay.
Like
that's fair.
Yeah. So, and I had goals, right? I had dreams. I had gotten a scholarship to go to U of A. I was playing soccer. I had good grades, even though I was making these decisions around alcohol and drugs. I still was doing well in school. It baffled me. I mean, that was all God. That's the only reason I got through and got a high school diploma. So I had dreams, right? I was like, I'm not going to stay in this small town. Everybody knows me because I was a Knowles. I went to the same high school my dad went to, and all of his brothers and sisters. So there was like this stigma or this expectation of how I was supposed to grow up.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
And I didn't meet those expectations. And so I wanted nothing more than get out of the small town that I was in. And so essentially I got married at 16 and a half. My daughter was born in October. And I knew right after my daughter was born, I was like, okay, I got to do this until I'm 18. I got to become an emancipated minor and like, let me go live my life. And that's what happened. I stayed married until I was 18 years old, and we ended up getting divorced.
That is so sad. So you felt the religious pressure to marry this person.
Absolutely.
Dang. Okay.
Yeah. And I think that had a lot to do with my lack of faith and trust in church and people in the church.
I understand that.
It was huge. I also had an experience in high school where we had a pastor, the church that my mom took us to, we had a pastor who had this affair, and he was also our family therapist. And so like that came out in the wash too. So lots of human stuff happening, right? But at that time, like now that I look at it today, humans are going to fail us every day. Like that's
absolutely.
humans, right? But I couldn't decipher the difference between like this is human and this is who God is, right? These are the humans that are running the church. So
I think you had a lot of heaviness going on in a season where I don't even think our brain is developed to the point where we can authentically process it.
Absolutely. I don't even have the coping skills to do it, right?
Yeah, I once heard that like the human brain does not develop a love greater than you love yourself until like the age of 27.
Wow.
So that's a lot. I don't know if that's a true statistic or not. But.
Right. I definitely didn't know how to love myself until the last 6-7 years. I just started to learn how to love myself in the last 6 years.
So your daughter was born, she's healthy?
Yes, she was. She was a smaller weight baby, but natural pregnancy, natural birth.
Were you doing drugs and alcohol during the pregnancy?
No. So when I got pregnant, I was like, all right, I'm sober. I'm going to be a mom, right? I'm going to be the best mom ever. I got sober until I was 19 years old. I didn't drink. I didn't do drugs. And I focused on being a mom. I focused on raising a baby. I was also still in high school. My dad helped me. That was a big thing my dad wanted me to make sure happened for me, is that I would finish high school, even though I was 16 and pregnant. He was like, you are going to get a high school diploma. So they really supported me in that. I had a part-time job. I think my daughter was probably 2 or 3 weeks old, and I went right back to school. Found a childcare, a lady that babysat for Kylie, my daughter. And she was amazing. Her family, she had 4 girls, and all of them had babies. And one of them I was in high school with, and she was also a 15 and pregnant mom. And so they kind of took us under their wing, and she taught me how, what motherhood looked like how to be a mom at 16 years old. She watched Kylie. She helped me tremendously. It was like extended family. And Kylie, she babysat Kylie until she was about 10 or 11 years old.
Oh,
she
wow.
helped me. Yeah, she's a big part of our
So you had
life.
a big support system, it sounds
Huge.
like.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. They definitely, and that was back home. I stayed there for a couple of years, and I ended up moving down to Phoenix. But when Kylie was younger, I had a lot of support. I had my family. Her dad was there, and all of her babysitter and the extended family, for sure.
Okay, so where does life take you there? Like, that was what age? 18, roughly?
Yeah, from 16 to 18. 18 hit, and I'm still on this path of like, I got to get out of my hometown. I got to get out of this small town. I don't want anything to do with it. And so right after the divorce, I immediately moved down to Scottsdale, Arizona, because my goal, right? My goal was at the time I wanted to be an attorney. Okay. I needed to go, my goal was to go to college, be an attorney, and I'm going to do this and nothing's going to stop me. And so at 18, I moved down to Scottsdale. I would do visits, like we would exchange Kylie on the weekends, because it's only like a 2-hour trip from Cottonwood, and Cottonwood's just outside of Sedona. So
I've been there too.
Yeah, so from Cottonwood to Scottsdale. So we would meet halfway at Sunset Point, it's only an hour drive. He would take her on the weekends and vice versa. During that time, I was in school. I went to the community college down there because I was still determined to get my college degree. But I needed to figure out a way to make good money, be a single mom, and be a college student. And so that is when my life turned. I explored stripping. I became an exotic dancer. Yeah.
Really?
Yes, ma'am. I sure did.
So, okay, that's a whole nother podcast, but
Yeah.
In your mind at the time, you knew who God was, you decided to be a stripper. Was it merely for money?
Absolutely. Well, it was for money, and it was lots of money in a short amount of time. Like, I didn't have to work hard for it. I could still go to school. I could still be a mom. And then I could make all this money to make all of this happen.
Did you feel any guilt once you decided to do that?
I don't know that I felt guilt. I think maybe in the beginning I may have. I was nervous because I'm like, what am I doing? Like, it's a lot to take your clothes off, right? And for money.
Yeah.
But that's when alcohol entered my life again, you know?
Was the alcohol the coping mechanism to maybe numb the decision that you made?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. And to give me the comfort and ease to do that type of work and to blend in again with people.
Can you just tell me, we don't have to talk about that a lot. I had a friend in college who also chose stripping. She was like a dancer, though. She was really, like, she appreciated the art of it.
Yeah.
Looking back at that now, do you remember what you felt like the first time that you got up on stage and did that?
I was so scared. So scared.
Okay.
It was frightening, but I felt like I was desperate. Like, I needed to figure something out. I needed to figure something out to continue to prove everybody wrong, that I was going to go to college and I was going to raise this kid on my own and I was going to make sure the bills are paid. It was nerve-wracking. And then I won a contest and I was like, okay, I'm
What was the
hooked.
contest?
It was an amateur night in Phoenix. They
For
had-
stripping?
Yes.
Okay.
So brand new dancers that want to get into the work.
Okay.
Right? Sunday night amateur night at Christie's. That's what it was. And I went in there. I made my first $700 and I didn't look back. I was like, all right.
Was this like full nudity or just take your top off?
So it started with just topless. But I did go into full nude dancing.
Wow, there's such a thing back then?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah,
Wow.
I did. And there was more money in it, and I felt like that was like my root of all evil, right? Like that money piece. And that's what I was after. I was after making sure that I had the resources I need to provide for me and my daughter.
Do most women that get into that do that just for the same reason that you did?
I think there's a mixture of reasons. I think what I saw because I danced for about 7 years. And what I saw is,
That's a long time.
yes, yeah, it was. And I'll tell you what, if it wasn't for what happened to me 7 years later, I don't know that I would have stopped dancing. I really don't know that at that time.
Are you going to church still
Absolutely
at this time?
not. No.
Okay.
No way. I am so far. I am upset with God. I'm upset with the church. I'm upset with this. You know, you can't go to church because you got pregnant at 16. No.
Yeah. Would you say, looking back, that you were the typical prodigal daughter?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. And he continued to run after and chase after me, and I was not having it.
So you're 7 years doing stripping.
Mm-hmm.
Were there any dangerous moments in those 7?
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Did God use any of the dangerous moments to draw your heart?
I think that when there were some, when I would say yes, but was I aware of it? Absolutely not. Absolutely.
Do you want
not.
to talk about one of those? And I don't want to stay on that part of your testimony if it's
No,
not a
that's
big
fine.
part.
No, like I would get pulled over, I would get arrested, right? And it's like these big aha moments of like, okay, Dominique, like this isn't the path you're supposed to be on. But I was so lost. I was so lost. It was money, it was drugs, it was the man I was with.
Yep. Oh, okay. So you were in a new relationship after your divorce.
I was. I met an individual. He had a tattoo shop, and I was a stripper. And you know, life is grand. Like there's the fairy tale story that I wanted to live. Like that's how delusional I was. Absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah. And
He was your Jesse James.
Exactly. That's exactly what it was. It was wild because it's so crazy. And my mom and I talk about this a lot today. She wants me to write a book with her, and I'm thinking about it because I talk about this part of my story, and it's like a whole nother lifetime ago. Like I just can't believe I put myself through that. You know? I
That's
just
okay.
I just can't believe
I
that
think
that was my life.
that's good though that we look back. I mean,
Absolutely.
if we're honest, I think we all should look back and say there were things I did that I'm not proud of, or because again, it's part of your testimony.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, go on.
Um So yeah, he had a tattoo shop. He was a piercer. I was a dancer. We we bought fun things. We had the sand rails, the ATVs. We went camping. We were out on the lake. We'd work. We had the tattoo shop. Like we were living life. Like that was like the culture back then. But with those activities and that culture came a lot of drug use, a lot of alcohol, a lot of DV, domestic violence between the two of us.
When you say drugs, what kind of drugs are you doing?
At that time, I was doing cocaine and I was doing pharmaceutical drugs. We would go down to Mexico. So going to Mexico to get pills back then, that was no thing. Like my dad and my stepmom, that was something we did when I was 12 and 13 years old, right? You would go down because the cost of healthcare was cheaper in Mexico.
Yes,
right?
I'm aware of that.
So we would just go down to Mexico and get our antibiotics, right? We would just go down there and grab that stuff and drive back over the border. That is what I was used to. But it evolved, right? So then we're going down to Mexico to buy pharmaceutical drugs, like narcotics, and bringing them back over. And so when I was dancing, yes, I was making a lot of money, but then I figured out how to make money selling drugs, right? And so it started with cocaine, and then it morphed into pills. And so that was what we did. We brought weed over. We would sell weed, we would sell cocaine, and we would sell pills on top of dancing. And that's what we did. And through that was a lot of chaos with the police. My ex had done prison time from the age of 17 to 23. And so he was still really addicted to it too. It was a lot of activities that were very dangerous. I put my daughter in some really dangerous situations. I would never, I just can't even fathom those decisions that I made. Like today, it breaks my heart that I put my daughter into some situations that I would never even dream of today.
Like looking back at that, I'm sure you probably would love to just shake yourself and say, Dominique, wake up.
What are you doing?
And again, you're talking to someone who's never even had a cigarette. So can you explain to me, like, do you just compartmentalize it? Can you explain why you felt it was okay to do that? Like, is there anything, and this is the part of the sin stuff that, thank God I have the Holy Spirit. So I get really convicted about things. But God still loved you.
Absolutely.
Wasn't there any time where you were like, I shouldn't be doing this, or this is terrible, or this is not God's best for me? Did it ever cross your mind?
I don't think that ever crossed my mind. But what I think towards the end, when the consequences started to get more and more severe, then I was like, okay, I've got to change something. I'm going to go to prison. Like, I've got to change something. My father passed away. My ex ended up getting into a shootout with the police. A lot of things. And then I had an ectopic pregnancy. And that's ultimately what ended me dancing. That's what ended my...
Okay, let's go there next. So you're 7 years stripping.
7 years stripping. My ex and I had continued to have a lot of DV issues, drugs involved. My father, unfortunately, he had to spend some time in prison. He got out. He had a skin cancer diagnosis. And when my father got out of prison, he was only alive for about 8 months after he got out, and he ended up passing away. And so my father passed away. My daughter got really sick, and so the week of my father's funeral. I was planning his funeral when my daughter was in the hospital. So I was planning a funeral from the hospital. And then 2 weeks later, I found out that I had an ectopic pregnancy.
And
So,
what is an ectopic pregnancy? What is that?
So it's a pregnancy that happens in your tubes.
Okay.
It's a tubal pregnancy. And at the time, you know, I didn't go to the doctor. I didn't take care of myself. I made sure my daughter was taken care of, right? I did the things for her, but I never thought about, you know, I needed to go to the doctor. I needed to do my checkups or anything like that. I always made sure I was on birth control because I was like, I'm not having another kid. But
you still got pregnant on birth control.
I did. I had a Depo-Provera shot. I was on it for 7 or 8 years. Yeah. And 2 weeks after we buried my father, I was bartending at the time because I was trying to get out of the dancing world. And I pretty much passed out. I didn't go like unconscious or anything. And I wasn't going to go to the hospital. I was just like, take me home. Let me take a pill. Let me drink some whiskey and I'll be fine. And that's what I did. And my ex at the time, he was just like, you have to go to the hospital. I was like, I don't want to go to the hospital. He's like, you have to. And I called the babysitter that helps me with Kylie. And she's like, Mija, you have to go to the doctor. I had been bleeding like nonstop. I wouldn't stop bleeding. And in my mind, I thought it was like stress. Like my father just died. My sister, my daughter was in the hospital. Like it's just stress.
How far along were you?
You know what? He said within my first 8 weeks. I wasn't very far along. Basically, and it may even be less than that. It was so long ago, but the egg doesn't drop far enough into your uterus for it to start.
Sure.
So it starts fertilizing in your tube. So the man I was with at the time, he takes me to the hospital, and I was like barely coherent at the time, and they take me to the hospital and they rushed me into surgery. And all I remember is the doctor coming in after I got to the emergency room, and they said, I'm about 70% sure you're having an ectopic pregnancy. And I was like, what is that? They said, it's a tubal pregnancy. I was like, okay, what do we do? And he's like, you have to go have surgery. And so before I knew it, I was waking up from an 8-hour-long surgery. And the man I was with at the time and my mom, when I woke up and came to, they were in the hospital room together. And like, they did not like each other for valid reasons.
Sure.
Right. And I couldn't believe it. I was like, why are we all here? They're like, Dominique, you almost died. You had 2.5 pints of blood in your stomach. And so had I not made that, you know, the guy I was with at the time, had he not taken me to the hospital, I would have died that night. And it just blew my mind.
I did not know it was that serious.
Yeah, absolutely.
Whoa. Okay.
So my father passes away. All this happens. And I'm beside myself, right? Because I use my body to make money. And I'm like, what am I going to do now?
So your body had like basically been through a war.
Absolutely,
I mean, with the stress of everything, drugs, now you have this unhealthy pregnancy that, did it have to be aborted?
Well, they do this. They have to take it out of the tube. They have to remove the pregnancy from my tube. So I couldn't tell you all the details because it was so long ago, but they had to essentially get the pregnancy out of my body.
But the baby couldn't be saved, the fetus.
No. It's not uncommon, right? So if an egg is dropping, then it has to make sure it gets into utero.
Right.
And so that's not what happened. It got, what's the word? Anyways, it started fertilizing in my tube. So they essentially had to take it out of my tube.
Were you sad?
No, because I didn't have any idea what was going on. Like I couldn't understand it at the time. I was just like, what does that mean? I think I was more relieved that I wasn't going to die, number one. And I didn't know, like, what does it mean to have a tubal pregnancy? And I didn't even think I could get pregnant because I had been on the birth control for so long. I definitely was relieved that when I got out of the hospital and I could go home and relax, because I wanted to get back to my alcohol. And I wanted
Serious?
Absolutely. There was so much going on at the time that I was just like, all I want to do is go home and sit on my dad's chair, and I want to drink and I want to take medications. Like that's all I could think about doing. I didn't want to cope with life. We had a lot of chaos, and that's where I wanted to be. 6 months later is when I finally made the decision to move to Colorado. Things escalated in my relationship. My ex was on his way to prison for a second time for 10 years. And we had undercover officers come into our house. And so...
Did you give up stripping?
Only because of my surgery for my ectopic pregnancy. That was the only reason. I tried to go back probably 6 weeks later when I finally could stand up again and move my body around again. I went back down for a couple of months to go dance, and it was not working out for me. I couldn't do it. So I stopped dancing after that.
So you moved to Colorado. What are you doing for a job?
So when I got out to Colorado, I went into the restaurant business.
Okay.
I started cocktail serving. I started bartending.
Was this at Hooters or?
No.
No. I didn't know what your segue would look like.
No. So I was so self-conscious, right? I was so self-conscious about getting on the stage again after that surgery because I had this scar on my stomach. Like, I was so self-conscious. Like, I can't wear a bikini again, you know? So when I came up here, I started working at Jose Muldoon's. I walked into Jose Muldoon's, Mexican food restaurant, and I was like, I need a job. And the goal is I left my daughter with my ex-husband in Arizona and said, give me 6 months. Let me get to Colorado. Let me, set up shop, and I'll be down here and I'll pick her up. But I need your help right now. I wanted to come out here because my sister was here. So that was my decision around that. She let me come and stay with her in her apartment. And I walked into Jose Muldoon's, I think like the first 5 days that I was here, and I got hired immediately. And I was like, all right, bet, got a job. Then I got the apartment. Went back to my ex-husband and I said, okay, I'm ready to come pick up Kylie. And he was like, no, you're not. You're not picking her up. Like, you've made really poor decisions, Dominique. He had known about my life as a dancer, my ex that was now in prison for 10 years, the drugs, the alcohol. And he was like, no, you can fight me for it. I was like, all right, let's game on.
How old was Kylie at the time?
Kylie was 8 years old at the time.
Okay.
Yeah, 2001 to 2007. Yeah, so she was 7 years old at the time.
Okay.
Which blew my mind that he was doing that because I had always been the sole provider. There was a time when she was younger that he wouldn't even take her on the weekends because he had his own struggles with alcohol. He had some brief stints where he had a lot of struggles with alcohol on the party scene. So, I mean, there would be months where he wouldn't take her. So I was doing...
But now he wants her.
Now he wants her.
And you had to fight for custody?
Yeah, so we had an arrangement. He stopped answering the calls. I was like, what's going on? And then a process server showed up to my sister's door when I was living with her, and they served me with custody papers. And I was like, what is going on? Like, you totally blindsided me. Didn't communicate any of this with me.
Wow.
And me and my sister got into the car, went back to Arizona. Cops wouldn't let me take my daughter. They had an emergency custody order. And so came back to Colorado and came up with a game plan. He had an attorney. I did not. Fortunately, from the time I was dancing, I did go to school. I did get a paralegal certificate. I was getting my associate's degree in criminal justice. I hadn't completely finished my degree, but I knew my way around the court system. And so I navigated a custody case, and he had an attorney. I fought back and forth with him and his attorney. And in July of 2008, I ended up getting full custody of my daughter, and they returned her back to me.
Get out.
Absolutely.
You got full custody.
I did.
You had a good attorney.
I did not have an attorney. I did it myself.
Oh my.
Yes. Yes, I did.
Are you kidding
My mom helped me. And you'll hear me refer to my mom like, my mom is a champ. She is a hero. You know, we've had some history. We've had some hard times. We've had some great times. But that woman she is my biggest mentor. Everything that has gotten me through the hard stuff that I've gotten through in my life. Because fast forward, 10 years later, then I have DHS cases that I had to get through. And my mom coached me through all of that. Yeah, it was wild. It was wild. I never in a million years thought that I would get my daughter back.
What a special mother.
Absolutely.
Holy
Absolutely.
cow.
And I owe her so much because at the time I was the victim, and, you know, she was trying to guide me and direct me, and
She didn't give up on you.
absolutely not. She prayed for me like crazy. She says it to this day. She's like, Dominique, you have no idea how many times I prayed for you. You kept me up all night. I would just ask God over and over again.
The power of a praying
Yep.
parent.
Yeah.
Holy cow. Okay, so Kylie gets to come to Colorado.
Yes. Kylie came back.
Okay.
She came to Colorado, got her in school. At this time, I also but when I came to Colorado, I had some criminal charges too. And so what they do is called an interstate compact.
Related to
Arizona stuff.
the drug stuff?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And so I did an interstate compact, so I was still on probation when I came out here, and I cleaned my stuff up for a bit, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Got Kylie back, got her in school, had the job, paying my bills, managing well, still drinking here and there. Then
Are the drugs done though?
They weren't done, but they weren't as severe as it was back home in Arizona.
What were you still doing after you got custody back?
So I went into a doctor and I started getting pharmaceutical drugs prescribed to me because I didn't have Mexico 2 hours, 3 hours down the street anymore.
And you're still in a season where you're doing the drugs because you want to numb the pain.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And is the pain still going back to your parents' divorce, alcoholism?
Could
you put your finger on it?
I don't think I could. I think a lot of it is like, I had so much on my shoulders. Like, how do you be a single mom? How do you go to school full time?
Yeah.
How do you work full time? How do you do all of this and show up in all these different spaces? And that was my escape, drugs and alcohol, you know, because of the expectations. Some of it, I would say, was victim stance, I call it. Or I've come to learn that's what it is. I'm a victim of my circumstances. Numbing out, absolutely. Absolutely. So I got a doctor. They gave me prescriptions. But I still managed well because I was still paying my bills and I still had my kid. And then I got pregnant with my second kid. Who
are you with?
I was with an individual. I think we were together for 2 months. I worked with him and I was ready to break up with him. And then I found out I was pregnant. And I was just like, no. So
You are a very fertile woman.
I am. It was, yeah. It was
Sorry,
not
I had
good.
to say that,
No, you're
but
totally fine.
Holy cow.
And I'll tell you what, during that time, I was looking to have a relationship with God during that time. And so I got back into church during that time. I did. I started to go to service on Sundays. At least I was like, okay, like, I want this. And then another part of me was like, no, I got to do this because this is what my mom did for me and my sister. And like, this is what I'm supposed to do for my daughter, right? I'm supposed to show her that, like, this is what we're supposed to do on Sundays. So I kind of piddle-paddled around in church on Sundays and at the holidays during this time.
Yeah.
And I gave birth to my second daughter. And about 3 months after my second daughter was born is really when things started to get darker and darker in my life.
Darker.
Absolutely.
So you're pregnant with really baby number 3.
Well, yeah, absolutely. It is baby number 3. Isabella, I deliver her, still have my job. As soon as it was interesting because every time I get pregnant, I get sober with my kids, right? and as soon as I'm not pregnant, I'm right back at it. Like, it was very interesting to me because I hear people say like, oh, I'm getting sober for my kids. Like, that's not my story. Like, I can't get sober for my kids. I did get sober for some pregnancies, but like, but not my last pregnancy, my son. Like, I could not get sober for my last pregnancy. Absolutely not. He was actually born 8 weeks early because I could not stay sober. And so today, when I look back at that time in my life, my second daughter, I think there was some postpartum depression that kind of occurred.
Sure.
I didn't know anything about like therapy. I didn't know what it was like to take care of like your mental health or your spiritual health or anything like that, right? All I knew is I'm a single mom and I've got these 2 kids and I've got to work, and how am I going to do all this?
You're just carrying it all by yourself.
Absolutely. And not once did I even have this idea of like, oh, God carries your burdens, right?
Yeah.
Like I didn't know what that meant at all.
You said your days got darker.
Yeah.
How did they possibly get darker?
The drugs I was being prescribed were not enough. And so I started turning to the streets for harder drugs. Slowly but surely, my use into a darker world, a darker drug scene started to happen. And so that's when heroin started happening. That's when methamphetamine started happening. That's when I started to lose my job. I started to not be able to pay my bills. I started to not be able to take my kids to school. And then I started to pick up more criminal charges.
Okay.
At one point, I decided to go back to Arizona because Colorado wasn't working, because that was my MO, right? Run, and start over anew somewhere else. So here I am with my daughter. My youngest was 3 at the time. No, she was older than that. She was 4 or 5 at the time. And my oldest was 12 or 13 at the time. And pack everything up, went back to Arizona. I was in Arizona for about 2 to 3 weeks, and I got arrested because I had a fugitive of justice warrant out of Colorado because I had picked up some charges here and didn't think anything of it. Like, just run, Dominique, run from your problems. And I ended up, I think it was 3 or 4 weeks I was in Arizona, and I ended up getting arrested and held on a governor's warrant in Arizona. My kids at the time were with some family and friends, but that was the first time where I had a huge reality check of like, okay, Dominique, you're not getting yourself out of this one, and you're not going to get to keep your kids through this one. And so my oldest daughter did end up going back to my ex-husband, and my family went and picked up my second daughter. And I had to go through some more incarceration. I got out. I decided that I wanted to go to treatment.
You went into prison.
I did not. I got to stay in jail.
How long were you in jail?
I did 90 days in Arizona because I tried to fight extradition on a governor's warrant. And then finally, the paperwork went through and everything happened to where Colorado came and picked me up. And so then I got transported to Colorado, and I did another 30 or 40 days. So it was
all this time you didn't get to see your children?
No.
Oh my gosh, how did that feel?
At the time, I was very sad, very, very sad. But my only concern is that I didn't want my kids involved in the DHS system. So I was willing to do whatever my family out there told me to do to make sure that they would stay out of the DHS system.
What does DHS stand for?
Department of Human Services, Child Welfare Services.
Okay.
I did not want my daughters to be separated. I did not want like foster families or adoptive families or all these child welfare cases to happen, dependency and neglect cases. So I was talking to my ex-husband, talking to my mom, and basically, whatever you guys say I got to do, I'll do it. I even told my ex-husband on the phone one time when I was locked up, I said, send me in the custody paperwork and I will sign full custody. And it was just like, 4 or 5 years before that, I was fighting.
You were willing to give up custody?
Absolutely, because I didn't want my kids to get involved in the system. Absolutely. I did not.
Okay, I understand that.
Because I was deeply involved with the drugs and in that darkness. And I was like, I will do whatever it takes to keep them away from that system.
And he was happy to take, he took just his daughter.
Right. He took his daughter. My mom came in and my sister came in and helped me with my second daughter. Okay. Absolutely.
Wow. Thank God you had great family.
Yes. I definitely had family that was tough love. Absolutely tough love. Like,
well, I hate to tell you needed it.
Absolutely.
Right?
No, absolutely. I'm grateful for that because I don't know if I would have gotten sober if I didn't have that. I don't know. Like when I was down and out, when I was getting locked up, my kids were getting taken away, I was like, okay, Dominique, get sober. We're not putting up with it.
Did you?
Not that time. I did for a little bit. I had a goal and a motivation. I went out and got into a treatment program in Fort Collins. My youngest daughter went with my sister here in Colorado Springs. Oldest stayed in Arizona. They didn't let me talk to my daughters for a lot of months. I had to demonstrate some sobriety and some stability. Went through a program, graduated the program. And then as soon as I graduated that program, they gave me my youngest daughter back. My oldest was doing high school in Arizona, so she wasn't, and I didn't want to ruin that for her. I'm not going to put my wants in front of what she needs to do. So my daughter did finish high school with her dad in Arizona. My oldest did. But the youngest one was given to me immediately. I got her back, got the car again, got the job again, because I know how to do that, right? Like I know how to get going again.
Yeah, you're pretty resilient. You bounce back.
I do know how to do that. This program too is really when I started to truly understand what it means to have a relationship with God. It was a faith-based program I went into. I started going into 12-step rooms. I started doing Bible study. And this is really when I was like, okay, all right, this is the God deal. This is what it means to be a believer. This is what it means to trust and have faith and let him work in your life. This is what it means to surrender. And so that was my first dose of really having the relationship with God that I have today.
How did it feel when you
freeing
freedom?
Amen. So much. So this weight, right? The weight that I held on to for so many years, it was not there anymore. It was like my skeletons in the closet were out, right? Everybody knew that I had a drug problem and a drinking problem, and I was okay with it. I was okay with it.
So you kind of owned it.
Absolutely.
Just owned it. Well,
absolutely.
You were in full, what is that, when you have to completely surrender and accept what you've done? Would you say you did?
Absolutely. Well,
yeah.
I would say at the time I surrendered, but I still had reservations. I did still have reservations.
Were you still mad at God?
No.
Okay.
No.
All right.
No, I wasn't. I truly understood God was here to love me. He forgave me, right? I'm not what my past was.
Did you forgive yourself?
No. Absolutely not. No. And I'll tell you what, I still struggle with that today.
Yeah.
Have I forgiven myself completely today? There's still some stuff that I hold on to.
It's honest.
Absolutely. I have a ton of mom guilt because fast forwarding into 2016, 2017, after that experience in the treatment program and getting into 12-step recovery and getting to church and everything, I thought I had it. I got into another relationship and I thought I could stay away from the hard drugs. I just needed to stay away from heroin and meth and cocaine, but I could still drink and I could still do these other things. And so I did. I had about a year sober in recovery. When I look back at it today, I hadn't fully conceded to myself that I was truly an alcoholic addict. I thought I could still control it. I was still holding on to things and not fully surrendering and turning over. It was like I had these pink clouds in the beginning.
Well said. Pink clouds.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And then about 6 months into that, I started bringing stuff back into my control, right? I can handle this. I'm not going to give that to God. I'm going to hold on to this. I got this detail.
Did you get sober?
I was sober for 11 or 12 months.
Okay.
And then I relapsed.
Why did you relapse?
Because I took back control. Because I took back control and I didn't think I was an alcoholic addict.
Okay. You said, I can do this. What was that first encounter when you relapsed? Was it a friend offering you something, or did you just on your own say, gee, I missed that. I want to go back to it?
That I can control my drinking. I could control my drinking. And I was.
But you didn't go back to drugs. You went back to drinking.
No, I ended up going back to drugs. Absolutely.
It
started with alcohol.
Okay.
And I needed it. But today when I look at this part of my life, like there was a lot, there was a lot of damage caused during this time, but I had to go through it. I had to go through it to have the life that I have today. And I understand why now.
I'm happy that you say that.
Absolutely. It's it would not, it makes sense. It helps me to understand what my purpose in life is today. It really does. And even though it's hard and it still makes me cry, right? I had to lose all of that over again for me to understand why God created me to be the person I am today. It had to happen. I got into another relationship, and this is the father of my son that I have right now. And
how long ago was this?
This was in 2015, 2016.
Okay, fairly recent.
Yep. And we started doing drugs. I think I started drinking, and within like 3 weeks, I was doing drugs again. Absolutely.
How are all these men coming into your life that do drugs? You're not meeting any that don't? I've never met somebody who does drugs.
Yeah.
Like dating wise, ever.
Mm-hmm. Well, it was the places I was hanging out. I wasn't hanging out at
Where were you hanging out?
Originally the strip club, bars, pool halls.
Right.
Right.
So bars and taverns.
Absolutely.
But after your 11 months and you relapsed, where were you hanging out?
That was all the recovery community. That was recovery community.
No.
Absolutely.
You met this guy through a recovery community?
Absolutely. Yeah, we met each other in a recovery community.
How long was he sober?
He had 4 years at the time. 4 years at the time. Yeah. Yeah. And it's like you just get two people together that aren't working on a program on a daily basis, thinking that, oh, we can handle it just this one time, or I'm not an alcoholic and I can still drink.
I appreciate you saying that.
Absolutely. I mean, there's a line that talks about we had to concede to our innermost selves that we were truly alcoholic. And that's what had to happen for me. Because I didn't think I was really an alcoholic. I didn't. And we started drinking, and drugs came into the picture. I think we started drinking in September, October, and by February of 2016, DHS came to my house and took my daughter because we were into drugs that bad.
This was Isabella?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And I just couldn't fathom losing my kid to DHS.
And you were not a part of that rehab community anymore.
Correct. I stopped going. I stopped showing up. I stopped calling. I stopped reaching out. I stopped doing the things that helped me stay sober on a daily basis. That's what happened. Stopped going to church. Right before this has happened, though, is when I did get saved. I went to a church up in Loveland. My best friend, she was kind of my mentor and my guide that got me into church. I did get saved up there. I had, again, that pink cloud, right? Uh-huh. I fell to my knees on a daily basis. I turned it all over. I truly understood what it meant to accept God as my Lord and Savior.
Was this rock bottom?
Afterwards. Yeah, right after I got saved. I was homeless on the streets.
Where's the boyfriend?
Also homeless on the streets.
So the two of you are together homeless on the streets.
We would be together sometimes. We would separate sometimes.
Like you didn't have a car to live out of?
I did have a car to live out of, but then I started using the car for criminal activity and it got impounded and I was scared to go to the impound and get it. So I let the car go. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. This is the time where I started to do IV drugs.
Okay.
Absolutely. I was pissed off at DHS. I was pissed off at my best friend. I was pissed off at my family. They wouldn't let me see my daughter. I attempted to go to treatment. DHS tried to put me in a treatment program, and I had to have a clean UA to get into that treatment program, but I couldn't get a clean UA. Because
what's UA?
A drug test.
Okay.
I had to do a clean drug test, and I had lost my apartment. I lost my daughter. I was on drugs again, living out of the car, and so I'm in survival mode. Right? I'm in survival mode. And how am I supposed to stay sober when I'm living in a car in survival mode? Like I just couldn't fathom what that looked like. And so DHS told me, okay, Dominique, you can have visits with your daughter if you go to a treatment program. And I went and knocked on the door of that treatment program. They told me I had to have a clean UA, and I'm like, how the hell am I going to get a clean UA doing it like this? I did end up going down there, and I used medicated assisted treatment, which is there's a medication called Suboxone, and that helps heroin addicts get off of heroin and gets them onto Suboxone without having to go and withdraw.
Okay.
So living on the streets, living out the car, trying to survive. I went to a Suboxone clinic in Fort Collins. I got on the Suboxone. I had marijuana and Suboxone in my system. I walked into that treatment center in Greeley and I did my UA. And when they had found out that I was on Suboxone, they wouldn't let me go to treatment.
Why?
Because of the stigma around medicated assisted treatment. They did not know. There's a lot of myths that medicated assisted treatment is used to get high. While I'm not going to, some people do use it for that. I'm not going to say that that's not true, but in an appropriate setting, people are not using it to get high. They're using it to get off of heroin.
How sad is that the stigma is there for that?
It's
that
terrible.
They wouldn't accept you?
No.
So where do you go?
I lost my mind after that. I lost my mind because that was my last chance to see my daughter, my second daughter. I could not recover from that. It got darker. It got worse. I basically fell off the face of the earth from my family. I put myself in a lot of dangerous situations. I didn't care what happened to me. I became suicidal. I was never going to get a chance to be a mom again in my eyes. And
what's so crazy is looking at you today. You are so well spoken. You're a beautiful woman. Were you this woman back then?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. No. I was angry. I was hateful. I was harmful. I didn't care. I sold drugs. I robbed. I lied. And I didn't care who it harmed, especially after when I found out that they weren't going to let me see my daughter and I was going to lose my rights to my daughter. And that I couldn't be a mom again, I didn't care anymore. I didn't.
But did you ever think in all of these seasons, again, you were kind of raised in the church, you said.
A little bit.
But you weren't foreign to who God was and who Satan was. Did you ever think Satan has just got me in his talons?
I didn't.
What?
Isn't that wild? I didn't, because I also, Carrie Ann, I don't think that I had enough guidance to really get into the word.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
You didn't really understand what battle you were even fighting to identify who was on the field with you.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Right,
I didn't
that makes
understand that spiritual war.
Do you think a lot of
whatsoever.
people that are wrapped up in drugs and alcohol
Don't understand it?
they don't realize that we fight a spiritual world?
Absolutely.
Wow. Okay.
Absolutely. I come across so many people today that don't even believe in God, right? So how are they going to know that they're fighting a spiritual war when we're...
Maybe what we should do is get T-shirts that say Satan comes to steal, kill, and destroy.
Absolutely.
And walk around the streets.
Absolutely.
Where people are homeless, people are into drugs. Maybe.
Signs.
Sorry, go on.
You're good.
Go ahead. So you are feeling suicidal. You're at a really low point.
Yes. I got arrested during that time. I got arrested a whole bunch of times, but there was one time I had to come down here to El Paso County and I had to do 30 days. And my mom hadn't seen me in months. Nobody had talked to me in months. And I wanted it that way because I had so much shame. I was so hurt that I couldn't see my daughter anymore. And my mom came in to visit me in jail. And I think I had been in there for like 10 or 15 days and I was only doing 30 days and I was going to get out. And I had no plans of going back to sobriety at the time. During this time, this is when I was mad at God. I was like, how could you? Like, that's my daughter.
But you never attached to this is the consequence of my behavior? You were blaming him.
Exactly. I was the victim.
Okay.
I was the victim.
And Satan loves to keep us there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I was still a victim and it was my mom's fault and it was my best friend's fault. And how could you guys keep my daughter away from me? Don't you know I'm her mother? Like,
You were taking no ownership.
None whatsoever.
Okay.
Super selfish, super self-seeking. My mom came in to visit me, and I remember the CEO called me up. They're like, Knowles, you have a visit. And I'm like, who is visiting me? And I walk up into the screen, it's my mom. And I looked at her and I was like, I don't ever want to talk to you again, because I blamed her.
That you couldn't see your daughter?
Yeah.
Did you ever at all think maybe she brought your daughter with her?
Oh, no, she didn't. No. I knew she didn't have my daughter with her. Sorry.
Don't you dare apologize. This is deep stuff.
Yeah.
How long had been at the time that your mom came to visit you that you had not seen your daughter? We talking months or years?
It had been months. It had been 6 or 7 months.
That's a long time. And no part of you when you saw her were somewhat relieved and happy? I mean, she had always been there for you.
No. I was filled with so much hate, you know?
Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
Don't. I'm going to kick you if you say sorry again.
I didn't want to hear anything that she had to say. I felt like it was them against me, you know?
Looking back and knowing where you are today, though, would your response be different if you really understood how much she loved you?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Because I just see a mother that is showing up because she's like, this is my daughter.
Absolutely.
And I'm going to keep praying and I'm going to keep fighting for her.
Yeah.
But you were mad.
Oh, I was angry. I was very angry.
I do understand that. Again, I've never been in jail and I've never had the addiction, but you were really desperate.
Absolutely.
You didn't really even understand the battle you were fighting.
I didn't understand it. And when I look at it today, like, they were protecting the best interest of my daughter. And I was such a not good person. I was not being a good mom. I was putting my kids in danger's way.
Yeah.
I was not doing what mothers are called to do. I wasn't. It baffles me sometimes. I'm like, why did it take you that long, Dominique? You know, why did it take you that long to understand that? Like, that's not how you're supposed
there's a lot of things that take us that long. Satan doesn't want to get rid of you.
Yeah.
He loves
he had
destroying
me in
your
his
life.
grips.
He had blinders over your eyes.
Absolutely. Oh, yeah.
So you sent her away. You didn't want to talk to her.
Didn't want to talk to her. I got out and I went right back to what I was doing before. And before I knew it, I found out I was pregnant with my third kid. Yeah.
With the gentleman that you were homeless with.
Yes. Yeah. Yep.
Wow, you are really fertile.
I was so upset. I'll never forget the day that I saw, like, it was like I saw my body form, and this is how I know that.
Okay, I'm like shocked you're pregnant. You're on birth control the whole time?
No, I'm not on birth control during this time. Not this time. The second time with Bella, I was.
Okay.
Yeah. With my third son, no, I was not. And I didn't care. I mean, I was suicidal. I was on a death mission, right? I didn't care what I was doing.
So when you got pregnant with your son, you were still using?
Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. Nothing could stop me from not using. Absolutely.
And what did the father think?
He was sitting right next to me. He wanted me to get sober. You know, like, you can't do that when you're pregnant. I didn't want to be using drugs.
Did he want to be a dad?
Yeah, absolutely. He did. Yeah, he did. I think for him, it was kind of like, this is what's going to help us get out of this. Because he had a relationship with my second daughter too, you know.
Well, hey, let me say this.
Yeah.
You never had an abortion in all those situations.
I did not.
So praise God for that.
Praise God. Yeah, I did not. I thought about it. I did think about it. With my son, I did have 3 of them scheduled, and I could not get up to go. It was like, God was like, no. This is going to be your miracle baby. That's what I think.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? You made a good choice there.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
So as much as you beat yourself up,
I know.
I don't know many women in your situation who would have said, I'm going to bring a child into this world when I can't even take care of myself.
Right.
And you chose life.
That was my reason. I mean,
Praise God for that.
yeah. Yeah.
Because that would have been a horrible decision.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's such a selfish, self-seeking decision, you know.
Is he born healthy?
He was born 4 pounds. He was a bigger premature baby. He was not born addicted to drugs. He was not born addicted to drugs.
Were you using the whole time you were pregnant?
Yes.
Holy cow.
Off and on.
But he was healthy.
He had to be in the NICU unit for 12 weeks, 10 to 12 weeks. No, yeah, about 10 to 12 weeks. When my water broke 10 weeks early, and I was rushed into the hospital, and I immediately, so my rights were terminated on my daughter that February of 2017, and my son was born June of 2017. And so when I walked into that hospital room, I knew, all I could think about is like, I need to tell them everything, because I need to make sure that my son has the best possible chance of living, because I didn't want anything to happen. And I did attempt to go to treatment when I was pregnant.
Okay.
But I couldn't. I don't know. Well, I do know today, Satan had me in his grips. Like, he was sent to kill, steal, and destroy, and that's what he was trying to do with me. So when my water broke and I went into the hospital, they knew who I was. They knew about my criminal history. You know, I had known. They knew exactly who I was, and I straight up told them. I said, so my rights just got terminated on my daughter. I'm not sober. This is what's gonna happen. And as soon as I said, and I'm doing this because I need my son the best chance. I want my son to have the best possible chance of, getting through this. And by the grace of God, my son was born. He was not addicted to any substances, and he had marijuana and Valium in his StatCore test, and that was it. And that is, my son is literally a gift from God.
That's like a miracle.
It is a miracle, because I was using IV drugs during my pregnancy.
Why do you think God protected him?
Because God wanted to show what I'm supposed to do in life. That's what I think. I think I had so much pain, like I'm never going to get to be a mom again.
Yeah.
And so he was like, nope, this is what you're doing. You're going to be a mom. You're going to get to be a mom again.
What is your son's name?
Hunter.
Ooh, that's a great name.
Hunter James.
Every time I hear that name, I'm like, gosh, if I ever had a son, I would call him Hunter.
Yeah.
In a way, do you look back and think it was God's way of protecting him from what you had done? He was protecting Hunter.
Absolutely. To around the pregnancy, the premature pregnancy or the premature delivery.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. I think he was doing that. I think it was also an opportunity for me to really step up to the plate, to be like, okay, Dominique, are you really going to do what's in the best interest of your kids?
Did you?
Absolutely. I shared
Ooh.
with the courts. I shared with the hospital. I made sure DHS did get involved. I didn't think I was going to stay sober though, because after my son was born, they immediately took custody of my son, and he had to go to foster care. I was still using. I could not get sober. And then fast forward to January of 2018, I got arrested for the final and last time.
What did you get arrested for?
Warrants. I had warrants. I had warrants for noncompliance. I had drug charges. I had a DUI. I had a lot of different things in different counties. I had picked up some cases all over the state, and probation ultimately made it to where I had a no bond hold. So when I got arrested, I had a warrant and I couldn't go out anywhere. They weren't releasing me this time. Where in the past I would get a bond over and over again. That didn't happen this time.
So did you serve time in jail?
Absolutely. Yeah. I was actually mentally preparing myself to go to prison at this point because I had so many cases. I had warrants. I couldn't stay sober. I couldn't get off paper. I'd literally been on paper from 2013 to 2018, and I was not successful in getting off of paper. So I had 2 kids that were taken from me, or rather, I had 2 kids that I lost to the DHS system, and my rights were terminated on my second one, which means I cannot see her legally. I have no legal rights
to this day.
To this day, yeah. I have
Wait,
no legal rights
Isabella?
to her. Yes.
But isn't she with your mother?
No, she's with my ex-best friend. Yeah, my best friend at the time had said, Dominique, I'll let you, why don't you go get treatment and get some help? And then once you get sober and get on your feet again, you can have Bella back. And I couldn't get sober. And the state has some regulations and laws around when a child is supposed to be permanently placed with somebody. And I couldn't get sober in time. And so they terminated my rights. And so she adopted my daughter.
You have a friend who adopted your daughter.
Yes, absolutely.
What an amazing friend.
I'm grateful.
Is it fair for me to say that?
I'm grateful for her because she has given Bella a life that I could not give her.
Right.
Absolutely.
At that time. Maybe today we would like that to look different. But at the time.
Absolutely. I look at that. Bella had a childhood, rocky start with my stuff. But the fact that her adoptive parents have provided her a lifestyle that I could never do.
Yes.
And did the things that I am eternally grateful for that. And that's another reason why I won't press the issue about really getting involved in her life until now I've done the work. Okay. I've absolutely done the work. I've done my part around my steps and attempts to heal that relationship. Absolutely, I have.
And that story's not over yet.
Exactly.
So tell me, how is Hunter? What happens? You did go off to jail? Like, how long did you serve?
So I was in jail for 4 months. I was getting ready to sign a deal to go to prison. And I had DHS hearings while I was in jail. And DHS, like literally at the last moment, said, Dominique, if you're willing to go into a treatment program, we'll keep your case open and we'll give you an opportunity to get your son back. Yeah.
So where did he go in the meantime?
He was in foster care. Foster care.
For how long?
9 months, 10 months. And then he went to my mom's after that. He did go to my mom's because of what happened with the Bella situation. My mom's went up to the plate because when I lost my rights to Bella, everybody in the family lost rights to her, basically. So my mom went to the plate. My mom got custody of Hunter. I went to sober living. I took a drug court program sentence, and I never looked back. I haven't looked back since.
What was treatment like?
So I went to a sober living program with outpatient treatment. So it wasn't, it was day-to-day living in recovery on a day-to-day basis, doing therapy groups on a daily basis, 3 to 4 hours a day. It was hard work, a lot of work. I didn't have a license at the time. I didn't have a vehicle at the time. I'm using public transportation. Again, like I said earlier, I have the tough love family, right? So it wasn't like I was getting a whole bunch of support. I think my mom came out and did help, like get some hygiene stuff and get me going. But treatment, I definitely wasn't in an inpatient treatment program, but an outpatient treatment. And it was the best thing of my life.
Really?
Absolutely.
Why do you say that?
Because I started to get my life back. Because I was ready. God, do whatever it is you want to do with me. I have an opportunity to be a mother to my son. I am not putting a needle in my arm anymore. And I am ready to get my life back. And it was back to that sense of freedom that I talked about earlier, the first time that I
So that moment when you like really surrendered it, do you know where you were? Was this while you were in jail?
Absolutely. It was
Okay.
in the morning. So I used to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and do Bible study with this lady who I had done jail on and off with her for like 8 years or something like that. Like I've known her for a while, but I only knew her because we were always in jail together. And we would get up and it was when I was reading Proverbs. Like she taught me how to read Proverbs on a daily basis, right? And so it was right before I thought I was going to take a DOC sentence, a prison sentence, and I ended up taking a drug court sentence, and they accepted me to drug court. And she said, "Mama, you're going to go home, and you're going to be with your kids." And she goes, "And all you got to do is fall to the feet of Jesus, and He's got you, no matter what." And so,
Was that like your moment?
absolutely,
Where it
was
really
like
resonated?
yeah, absolutely. It was like 3 o'clock in the morning too.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I was like, "You're right. Like, let's do this. Let's do it." And I was out of jail within a couple of days after that, and went to a sober living program, and it was on and cracking after that. I did everything that was suggested of me. I got to go back to church and started going back to church about 9 months, maybe 6 months after I got out of jail. Started getting relationships back in my life. Started to be trusted again. Felt worth it, right?
Yeah.
Felt worth it. I remember the first time I raised my hands to worship during this time. This is when I started raising my hands to worship. It was truly, I can't explain it. It's just been an overwhelming sense of freedom. Like God is on my shoulder. Like, I got you. You are mine. I got you. I brought you here. Let's go. That's
Love
what it's
that.
been like. Absolutely.
And you've never looked back.
I have not looked back. Now I've had some dark moments.
Naturally.
Right.
I mean, you thought Satan's going to let you walk in 100% freedom?
Absolutely, right? No. And actually, it's that the battle of David and Goliath is what happens in my life, I feel like, today.
Well said.
That's what it is. Because I see so many giants that God has brought me to defeat over and over and over again. And so I continue to see, right, these giants coming, and I'm like, all right, God, like it's like he's like right on my side, and it's like, all right, another one, sister, like or daughter, let's go. Let's do it again. And I really feel like even getting to this today, like my last 48 hours has been brutal, and I'm like, man, like all we're trying to do is speak about the glory of Jesus. Like that's all I'm trying to do.
But I do have to say, from hearing you speak, you're tough.
Yeah.
You're a tough lady.
Yes. Yeah.
So I wouldn't think the rest of your life is going to be, tulips and unicorns.
No, of course not. It's not going to happen that way. Because God has a purpose and a plan for my life, and He's using me as a tool.
Yeah.
To ultimately to help other parents, I think so essentially I always want to get back into the work of like, I want to help other moms understand that they can overcome and defeat DHS and get their kids back. Because I never thought I could be a parent again. I never thought I was going to be a mother again. And I fully expected that I was going to lose my rights to my son. And in 2019, I got full custody of my son, and I closed my DHS case.
Yay.
And I never in a million years thought that was going to happen.
Is the father of Hunter still in Hunter's life?
He is, as he can be. He struggles with sobriety. So, but his family is.
Okay, and what does your relationship with Hunter look like today?
I'm a single mom. I take care of him day in and day out. We're learning life together. Being a sober single mom is one of the hardest things ever. It
Why?
Absolutely is. Oh,
I mean, you've kind of walked through the fire. You're on the other side.
right. Because because I want to show Hunter. I still have this side of me that is selfish and short, right?
I think we all do.
The sinful side of me, where I'm impatient and intolerant, and I don't like to be that way. But I struggle with like, okay, Lord, how to be a mom still, I guess, because I was never actually.
I was thinking about that.
Like,
you
I was
were really never
actually
a full-time mom.
I wasn't. My oldest daughter would take care of my youngest daughter and put her to bed and give her baths and stuff because I wasn't coherent, you know?
So does this ever resonate with you? Because as I'm listening to you, I'm thinking, God chose for you to be these children's parent.
Absolutely.
He chose you to be their mom.
Absolutely. It does.
So he obviously trusted you.
He did.
He had to at some point.
Yes.
Because why would he make you their mother?
Today, it's, and I see this as my daughter's going through some stuff over the last year.
Which one? The oldest?
My oldest.
Okay.
And so today I understand it. I think that I was sent to help start breaking those generational curses.
Amen.
That's what I think it is. To pour in and show them a different way. That's what I believe it is today. That was my calling. That is my calling, rather. To start changing the narrative in my family. That's what I see.
Well, that's a huge thing to celebrate.
Yeah, it is.
Because you're definitely walking more in glory now.
Absolutely. I love that. I love it. No, I do. And it's hard too, because I'm like, what I get to experience today, I want for my kids. Now, Hunter and I struggle with like, am I doing the right thing as a mom? Am I being the best mom I can be? But when my son is like, Mom, I want to go to kids club youth group on Tuesday night, and we sit here and talk Jesus with each other, and we sit here and pray on a nightly basis. And this Christmas, we're really working on Christmas is about what Christmas is really about, not the gifts and everything. In those moments, that's when I'm constantly reminded, like it's my God shot of like, no, Dominique, you're right on track. Like you're doing exactly what you're supposed to do as a parent. And I want my daughter to feel that same experience, but I also know that she has to go on her own journey to get there. And so,
how old is your daughter today, the oldest?
23.
She's 23.
Yeah, 23.
How old is Isabella?
Isabella is 13. She'll be 13 this year. No, 14 next year. I'm sorry. So yeah, she's 13 this year. And I haven't seen her since 2016.
Your story's not over yet.
That's right. That's right. That's why I keep doing what I'm doing right now.
So what does life look like for you as you look into the future? Like, what do you see for yourself?
What does life look like for me today? First, the most important thing for me today is that I get to show up as a mom. I get to show up as a mom to my kids. Like that's very important for me today.
Yeah.
First and foremost. Again, I think the calling on my life is to speak into other women who are working to get sober, stay sober, and be reunified with their children.
So God's using your pain.
Yes.
Now to help others.
For purpose.
Love that.
Absolutely.
Of course he's going to do that.
Of course he's going to do that, right? Speaking hope into some of the darkest places. I've got to work in recovery for the last 5 years now, 6 years. In the very beginning of my sobriety, God put a vision on my heart around helping women and opening a center to help them, pick up their beds and walk again and start to reunify with their children and get their children out of the foster care system. That is near and dear to my heart. I think that God has used the last several years to mold me and teach me and grow me how to get to that point. Mm-hmm. I've been able to work as a recovery coach. I've been able to become a manager and a program director, and really learning the higher level side of things around managing businesses. And so all these pieces, right, I think are steps to get me to the big picture that he has for my life. That's what I see today. I just started my last term of college. So February 9th, I'll have my bachelor's degree
In?
organizational leadership.
Look at you.
Yeah. I've wanted to get my college degree I've been working on this thing for 20 years. So, and here we're doing it. We're doing it.
It didn't have an expiration date. Here you are.
Here we are. Lots of work.
But what a better person, though. Again, that God looks down at you and says, okay, I'm going to use her. Mm-hmm. That's what motivates me when I go through my valleys. I don't know about you, but
it's interesting because, like, I understand that now, but sometimes I'm like, why? Why
wouldn't he use you? Otherwise, you went through all this, for nothing?
Right. But I guess, why me? Like, how beautiful is it? How great is it? Right? Like, that you would choose me to carry out your story. You know, your glory, what you do in people's lives.
Yep.
That's
Why not you?
Why not? Why not? Yeah. No. And it makes sense now. Like, and I don't always think about this, but when my testimony comes up and we're talking about it, I'm like, that's why the pain, why the suicide thoughts, the drugs, the alcohol, the chaos and the devastation, like,
yeah,
it was all touchstones for me. Huge touchstones for me. Touchstones to be the woman that I was meant to be today. Absolutely.
And there's so much pain and there's so much brokenness.
Absolutely.
And so many people are turning to the very things that you walked through. So if you're on the other side of this, hence why you're sharing your testimony.
Yeah. Who better to go back and reach out?
Absolutely you.
Absolutely.
And I feel like, again, I didn't know you then, but you have a lot of strength in you.
Yes, thank you. I do. I think all the pain and the hurt and the different events in life, like, I had to rise up. I had to get strong.
I would hope you would say that you sit here today that maybe you wouldn't change a lot about your past.
I don't. I am super grateful for every detail of my life. I am. I'm grateful. Now, are there some hard moments? Absolutely. But I don't regret my past. I don't. I had to go through everything I had to go through, because everything I had to go through is what brought me to my relationship with God. Everything that I had to go through brought me to what I'm doing today.
If you enjoyed this episode of Gritty Glory, I'd be grateful for you to subscribe, like, and share so we can get this out to as many people who need to hear it.